Hey everyone, and welcome to Lead Your Movement. I'm Angelique Ruers, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent. And this is our weekly show where we talk to business leaders and entrepreneurs who are using their business platform in order to lead positive change in the world and sharing with us those lessons from the trenches that you too can use in leading your movement. And today we are here talking about money. We're talking about your financial house in your business and getting that in order. There's a great expression in business. I think it's a golden rule to live by, which is that top line is for vanity and bottom line is for sanity. And that's what we want to focus on today. How can you really grow that bottom line profitability in your business very smartly, very wisely? You might think that we're here talking about movements and missions and purpose. And so, where is the place in that discussion for the financial side of it? But the fact is that if your business isn't sustainable, if it isn't thriving, if there isn't a healthy bottom line in the business, it is very difficult to find the time, the mental energy, and the freedom and the space that you need to focus on those passion projects, to focus on those types of things that are going to take your mission and your message forward. So these two things go hand in hand. The business has to be running in a financially thriving and ever growing way in order for you to truly be able to lead your movement. So, to help us have this conversation today, very excited about the guest we have. Joining us today is Parker Stevenson. Parker is the co owner and chief business officer at Evolved Finance. Evolved Finance is a bookkeeping firm that specializes in helping online entrepreneurs to build more profitable and financially stable online businesses. For more than 6 years, Parker has been advising some of the top coaches, course creators, influencers, and thought leaders on how to make more sound business decisions using, wait for it, financial data. How revolutionary is that, you guys? All right, please help me welcome to the show today, Parker Stevenson. It's so good to see you, Parker.
Angelique, thank you so much. You're saying all of the things I love to hear entrepreneurs say. So thank you for the great introduction.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. We have tons to talk about. Let's start where we always start, which is what is the movement that you are leading?
So it's interesting, as a bookkeeping company and a bookkeeping firm, bookkeeping tends to be commoditized. It tends to be looked at as something that people just go, I need it for taxes. And I think what makes our bookkeeping firm unique is the fact we're trying to go beyond just like, okay, your accountant has numbers now for them to file your taxes. And we're really trying to demystify finance for small business, empower business owners to really feel like, oh, this isn't as complicated as I think it is. If I have the right support team, I can totally manage this and I can totally make better decisions in my business to make sure that my business is actually building my wealth and not just stressing me out and putting me into debt or essentially making me a living that's not even as good as maybe if you had stayed in the corporate world. So just empowering entrepreneurs around their finances and around their money, that's really what we're trying to do as a company.
Yeah, that's totally talking to my heart right now, Parker. One of the things that we say to our clients all the time at the corporate agent is a lot of business problems can be solved with a $5 calculator. If we just look at some basic numbers, then things in your business will be a lot healthier because there's no point in working your tail off to not bring home any money whatsoever. And that happens for a lot of folks. What would you say is the biggest difference between the perspective that Evolved Finance brings to this versus the typical sort of local bookkeeper, maybe that QuickBooks certified individual, who's where a lot of people turn to for their bookkeeping needs?
No, that's a great question. Um, I hate to generalize, but I feel like in our industry as a financial service provider, the generalized notion is bookkeepers and subsequently a lot of accountants. We're not accountants, we're a bookkeeping firm, but bookkeepers and accountants kind of get lumped into this group where a lot of people who want to be bookkeepers and accountants aren't necessarily people that want to provide customer service. They're good at numbers, they want to dig into their work, and they kind of don't want to have to deal with the client. And I think as an industry between taxes and finance professionals supporting small businesses, I think they look at their role as something, well, the business owner doesn't really understand what I'm doing. I don't really want to have to explain it to them. This is just for taxes. How can I get their taxes done as easily as possible? And we'll go from there. And I think for us, and this is something my business partner had the foresight to really be thinking about, is that every month when your books get completed, that's an opportunity to get feedback in your business. It's an opportunity to get your scorecard or your report card around, all right, this month, how did we do? And then that data can guide you as the business owner to go, cool, let's do more of what we did last month. That looked great. Or, we might need to kick it up on the sales side, or we might need to take a look at some expenses. Because at the end of the day, if your business isn't profitable, what are we doing? We essentially have an expensive hobby if we're not turning a profit. And so that's where I think even though we're doing bookkeeping, just like any other bookkeeper, although we specialize with a specific type of business, so I think we do the bookkeeping better than most bookkeepers, but we have that understanding, and our team has that understanding that this isn't just for tax time. This is for the sake of the business owner to understand their business more deeply and to make better decisions so that they do build their wealth while also keeping the business stable, right? Financially stable, and learning how to sort of toe that line of let's keep money in the business so the business has cash flow and it's operating well, while also at the same time making sure as the business owner we're getting our paydays and we're starting to build our wealth so we can put into retirement, we can buy homes and property and save for our kids' college funds and all the things that, a certified financial planner would want you doing anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And I think when you said something about the fact that you get this feedback loop at the end of every month when you do your books, and then quarter, and then annual. We have an expression that in business, ultimately it's about gold bars, not gold stars. And what we mean by that is that, and this came honestly from my own situation. When I left corporate, part of why I left corporate was because I was killing myself working so hard and I wasn't really seeing the reward. I took a lot of those bad habits with me into the business, where I was, such a taskmaster, and I still am a taskmaster, but I was all about getting stuff done that had this like, oh, okay, I got that done. I got that website done. I got this done. I got this done. But at the end of the month, if the revenue wasn't there, and so I had all these gold stars that I gave myself for accomplishing all of these things, but where were the gold bars to show for it? And that is, I think, something that for those of us who lead now, for me, this was 2006, Parker. So this was a long time ago, but I had to kind of beat that out of myself that, in corporate, if you show up and you work hard, you get paid. As a business owner, just because you show up and work hard doesn't mean you get paid. And, so the importance of having the books done every month is a really critical piece. Let's talk for a second about some of the things that you feel. I kind of want to lightning round you a little bit. Can we talk
Sure.
about some of the things that folks have to have in place? Like whether they work with Evolved Finance or they're doing this on their own, whatever it is, what are some of those things that you're just like, look, this is a non-negotiable. You have to have X, Y, and Z in place in your business to have a degree of entrepreneurial maturity and run this thing like a business, not a hobby.
Yeah, I think the first thing is just get your business and personal finances separated. I
Really?
know that we've had businesses who have come to us who are shockingly large in terms of the monthly revenue for a small business and just never made that transition because someone didn't tell them or teach them, and shame on their accountant or anyone else that's been working with them. But it's really important for your bookkeeping, for your tax filing. And I think from a mindset standpoint, I think as business owners, and this ties into a little bit of what you were saying, Angelique, is that as business owners, we have this extra responsibility because, when you were going to your corporate job, you do your work, you keep your boss happy, you get paid. There's this extra vision and strategy we need to have as business owners to make sure that our businesses are profitable. Like I say this a lot, but profitable businesses rarely happen by accident. You need to be intentional with how you're running your business and how you're spending money in your business. So if you are intentional, you're likely going to need to see what's happening in my business. separate from what's happening for me personally. And I just did a webinar for one of our clients' audiences, Danielle Leslie, last week. And I think for a lot of new business owners, especially, there's this feeling like, oh, if everything's just in one bank account, it's just more convenient. It's easier. But the reality is, not only do we have to have our personal finances in order, and we need to really make sure that we have a good family budget and we really know what we're doing personally, but we also then need to have that clarity of, okay, I need to see what's just going on with the business so I can make decisions for the business separate from what I need to be making for my personal finances. So that's just such an easy way to make things less confusing right from the start. The other thing that I would say is entrepreneurs love to make finance more complicated than it needs to be, because I think the finance world convinces us that finance is scary and complicated and crazy, and you have to trust us and only us to guide you on this. So then I think as entrepreneurs, we get this a little bit of imposter syndrome that if we're not doing complicated stuff with our money, then we're not doing it right. And the reality is, one checking account for your business, one credit card for your business. A lot of our clients use PayPal, but maybe for some of you, you wouldn't, but only one PayPal account, one merchant account, right? Like, how do we just have one place where money is going through for all the various parts of the business that we're paying for expenses, we're bringing money in, and just why do we have 4 credit cards? Why do we have 3 checking accounts? And I know like the book Profit First is a really popular book in the entrepreneur world. We're not big fans of that because it's usually just a band-aid for bad bookkeeping. And so for us, it's like having 7 checking accounts. Well, it would be a lot easier if we just had proper bookkeeping showing us what metrics we need to be paying attention to in our businesses. So that's where, if we can, even just from a credit card standpoint, like if you have one credit card, you can run all your business expenses through every month. You're going to maximize your points on that card. So then you don't have points spread across 5 different credit cards. So now you can like maximize your travel points and actually get trips paid for or get cash back when everything's consolidated. But, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes will hear, oh, I need to pay for certain things on this card and certain things on that card. And it ends up just kind of like diluting their points to where they don't really get any benefit on any of the cards. So that's sort of simplicity. How do we keep things simple? And again, I think a lot of the issue here is if we don't have good bookkeeping and someone's not organizing and tracking the transactions happening in our businesses, we start to open up all these accounts thinking it's going to make it easier for us to follow what's going on with the business. And the reality is, looking at a checking account balance or looking at your credit card statement isn't going to give you the deep enough insights you need to actually understand what's happening in your business.
Oh, so many things I want to ask you about what you said. Thank you for addressing the separating of the business accounts and the business revenue from the personal revenue. Personally, I feel like this is the biggest and most unforgivable mistake there is. And not just from a finance bookkeeping perspective, from a mindset perspective. Like, if you are not separating this out, then you really are just self-employed.
Mhm.
And this isn't a business. And if you can't even do that one step, the amount of mindset shifts that start happening because of separating it out and looking at your business revenue, even down to, you know, when you see your expenses, and especially if you're paying yourself, because I'm a big believer that you should pay yourself on salary out of the business, and you start seeing those expenses, it even changes how you see the rates that you need to charge the marketplace, because you're understanding what it costs you to be in business, and they're not just paying you a salary or an hourly rate that goes to you. You know, you're funding a business, and so they're paying for the business. But I could do a whole shtick on that. But I'm so glad that you said that. What are some of the big mistakes that you're seeing business owners make right now, other than overcomplicating things, in terms of thinking about their finances in their business, that ends up hurting their profitability?
The biggest thing is just putting their heads in the sand. I
Mm.
think with a lot of business owners, you get into it because you love marketing, you love sales, you love your level of expertise, you love serving your clients or your customers, right? And you look at, especially since it sounds like, Angelique, you have a lot of service providers and
We
consultants
do.
that listen to this,
Yep.
right? You know, you're getting into it because you want to consult, usually not because you want to run a business. But if you're serious about scaling your operation to where we can hire other people to start to support you so we can serve more clients. If you do want to invest in systems so that you can provide a more streamlined experience for your clients and you can operate more efficiently behind the scenes in your business, all these things are going to cost money. And so I think for a lot of new entrepreneurs who, again, have years of expertise at what they do, are super talented, super skilled, super experienced people, but just maybe are coming out of the corporate world and haven't been used to this extra level of responsibility. I think as business owners, we go, well, I'll just focus on the things that I'm good at, and hopefully the other things will just take care of themselves. And unfortunately, running a business doesn't really work that way. And that's where I think, just to begin with, like, understanding, like, you don't have to be an expert at your taxes. You don't have to be an expert at your bookkeeping. You don't have to be an expert at legal or HR or even just the tech you use. You don't have to know those things super detailed, but we do need to bring experts in and the right people in to hold you accountable and to guide you and advise you. And that's why, like, if you're still trying to do your taxes on your own, and I say this as a company, we don't do taxes. Don't do your taxes on your own. Hire an accountant. Like, that's a mindset thing around, my business is valuable enough and important enough to me that I want to make sure my taxes are done properly and by a professional and someone who might be thinking about things I'm not even aware of. And I think that's with the bookkeeping side of things as well. A lot of business owners will go, well, my business isn't that big, or it's simpler than I think it is. But if the books aren't being done right and you're not seeing any financial data and you're not getting reports every month, and it's not your profit and loss statement or the financial reports you're getting don't make sense for your business, then why are you paying someone to do that? And so again, I think a lot of business owners will just go, well, there's money in the bank account, I guess we're doing okay. But as CEOs of our companies, regardless of how big they are, there's no CEO in the country for a Fortune 500 firm that doesn't know the details of their finances. Even with a CFO in the organization, they know what they need to be bringing in from a sales standpoint. They know the budgets that are going to be set for their departments to make sure that they're not just making a lot of money, but making sure they're keeping as much money as they possibly can. And that's the thing that if I can push everybody listening to do right now, is to start to take more responsibility for the financial sides of your business, because I promise entrepreneurship becomes so much more fun when you're actually taking home money for yourself.
Oh gosh, I'm into that. And by the way, for those of you who are listening to us live, if you have a question that you want to ask Parker, by all means, please certainly share those questions. We're happy to take those from him. So one of our things that we often talk about with our community, Parker, is the importance of entrepreneurial maturity and the
Mhm.
idea of actually doing things before you need to do them. Because actually, when you make more money, things are more complicated. As the business grows, it's not less complicated. And so,
Totally.
so the idea of like waiting, they're like, well, I don't need to do that yet. I'll get outside help and I'll make sure that my bookkeeping and my finances are there once I'm making $600,000 a year or $750,000 a year, but I don't need to worry about that right now. And I just break out in hives when I hear that, because every major leap, and boy, have our business over, since 2006 taken some leaps of massive growth. I mean, we have a huge team now. And so, or big team, I should say. And so, the idea that if I would have waited until now to take the financial side of my business seriously, what a train wreck that would have been. It was only because I actually did things and put things in place before I needed them, that it allowed, or before I thought I needed them, that it actually allowed me to go through the mindset shifts and to build the foundation that enabled the growth. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I would love for you to share it, in no names here, no, but share with us like one of your most memorable stories of someone who um, engaged with you all and they really had an epiphany in their business. Something really shifted because they started looking at their numbers religiously on a regular basis and used that information to make better decisions about where they were putting their time and energy. Walk us through, an anecdote of that, to really bring it home for people.
Um, I have like three I want to tell all at the same time right now. Let me see if maybe I can do two, because I think they'll,
Sure.
and I'll keep them short, that I think will teach two different kinds of lessons here. The first one was we have a client that we've been working with for years. And when they came to us, like the hustle was there, busting their butts, like, but doing so many things. They were selling so many things. They were doing speaking, they were trying to sell a course, they were doing consulting, they were doing one-on-one coaching, they were just like, their income section of their profit and loss statement was a lot of revenue streams, only making a little bit of money. And what we saw was that the expenses needed to try to support all these different revenue streams was just like, she was barely breaking even in most of her months. And so we were trying to, tell this client, like, how can you consolidate this revenue down and sell more of less things? How can we sell more of what your main offer is? Like, what is it that you're standing for as a business, and what's your expertise, and what's that flagship offer that's going to drive this business forward? And so the client ended up working with a business coach, hired a business coach for the weekend, and spent more money on it that we thought was like, oh God, you're going to spend money on the coaching. Turns out it was the best thing they could have done. That coach helped them, because we don't dive as deeply into our clients' like offers. Like, I'm not a product specialist, but this coach was able to do that. They got super clear on what that one main offer was. The client stopped selling all these other things, and within that year built a 7-figure business off of one offer, made over $1 million on one single thing. And lo and behold, profitability went along with it, because now they didn't need all these other team members, all this software, all this other stuff to try to support this business, when really now all the operations of the business can go towards supporting that one main offer. So that's something where I think a lot of entrepreneurs wouldn't think, oh, my finances could actually help dictate my product strategy
Oh,
or
yeah.
my offer strategy, right? And it's like, the numbers don't lie. They will point you in that direction. The other thing I wanted to share was that I think entrepreneurs sometimes don't realize how much their personal finances do affect their business's finances. And we had a client that came from a past career where high earner, it's a profession that's typically a high earning profession. I went into the entrepreneur world and did well, had grown the business, but because their personal expenses were so high that they were taking a lot of money out of the business. And so I don't typically talk to clients about their personal financial spending, because it's not really my expertise per se. I'm not a certified financial planner, but I couldn't help but go, I think we need to take a look at what you're doing with the money you're taking out of the business, because if you guys can tighten things up a little bit, and they were living a very comfortable lifestyle, so it wasn't like they were sacrificing a whole lot, I think it's going to open up the cash flow for this business, and you're going to be able to take it to another level. And again, sure enough, they took that advice to heart. They stopped taking as much money out of the business, were able to invest some of that money into the areas of the business where there were some bottlenecks. And last year they had the biggest year they've ever had. And they were able to take some big chunks of money out of the business after that, when the business was stabilized. They had better team support. There was more money saved up in the business to manage cash flow, and they're getting big paydays. But if they had operated the way they were before they had worked with us, there just wouldn't have had that cash available to really scale the business as quickly as they've been able to do in the last like 12 to 16 months.
That's incredible. I love those stories. It really brings to light what the numbers tell you. And that's why our joke about a $5 calculator, what it can do for your business when you just look at the numbers. Many years ago, we had taken our top line way up. But then when we saw the bottom line at the end of the year, it was a bit of cold water in our face because,
Yeah.
we drove the top line, but at the sacrifice for the bottom line. And actually, that was right when my husband came in. This was 7 years ago, I think now, as our CFO, 6, 7 years ago. And that was really his first role as our CFO was, let's focus on making sure that we're pricing everything and that what we're choosing to focus on has the right profit on it for it to make sense, to be worth the effort. I love that story about, you've got all of these things out there that this one business owner is doing. It's really taking their energy in every different direction, pulling their energy, creating all these extra costs, and just seeing it in black and white really, I think, is the wake up call. Most people don't look at it that way. I completely scared the heck out of myself. Hopefully I didn't just call like 911 by accident. I thought my sound was off. You guys, you'll love this. On my phone rings. I'm trying to turn it off and I think I like hit an emergency button. So hopefully 911 does not show up at our, because that would make this quite the episode, Parker.
Go
Um
viral. It would be the
so
highest watched
viral.
episode you ever have.
That would be, my clients would be like, yeah, that sounds like Angelique. That's like a total Angelique move. I love this question we have from Will. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
But what if my bookkeeper is solely interested in getting their job done and not in the growth of my business? How could I make that shift in that bookkeeper's mindset? Or, I would ask Parker, do you think that we can?
It's tough. It really depends on your bookkeeper's mentality, what they're capable of, and how they think about the work they do for you. And that's why when you work with your bookkeeper, I think there's a couple things that are important. Number one, do they understand your business model? Do they actually understand the type of work you're doing? Because that's going to help them to, again, make sure that they're organizing and categorizing your transactions in a way that makes sense. Number two, I think there needs to be an expectation around when are you getting your financial reports and what kind of reports make sense to be sent to you. Because again, we hear regularly from when we bring on new clients, it's like, my bookkeeper wouldn't even send me reports, or they'd happen like every 3 months. They were always behind on the bookkeeping. So I think setting the expectation around how often are the books going to be completed, and how can we set a regular schedule for when you send me the reports each month. So those are the two things there. We're a little bit, we really are, and I don't mean to be pompous about our own service, but the reason we've been successful is because we look at bookkeeping so differently than a lot of our competition. And Lord knows there's probably tens of thousands of freelance bookkeepers out there who are struggling to get enough businesses just to function. And there's a reason that we have people knocking down the door every year to try to work with us, because we serve this need that other bookkeepers just seem to kind of be missing. So I think, with anybody we bring into the business, how do we set some expectations there? I just know, Will, like in your example, it's sometimes hard because you might not know a lot about bookkeeping or finance. So setting that expectation might not have been a natural instinct when you were talking with your bookkeeper. But the things I just talked about in terms of like, do they understand your business? Are they getting the work? Is there an expectation around when they get the work done each month and when they send you a report? That would be a really good start at the very least to getting a better working relationship with your bookkeeper, at least with where you're at right now.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. The only thing I think I would add to that, if I may, is
Mhm.
sometimes asking for metrics that they're not giving you, but they could. They have the ability to give you those, but you're not necessarily asking for those. And if they don't have a natural sort of business growth mindset, they're not going to necessarily proactively say, you should be looking at this metric. One of the metrics we like our clients to look at, and I'd love for you to comment on this, is really profitability by client, as well as profitability by offering. And so, in the corporate space, for example, in the B2B space, you might have a client that you have an arrangement with, and they have the highest revenue figure in as your client. But when you look at what it takes to deliver on that engagement with that client, and you have all these bench members, or you have all these team members, or you have all this time and energy that goes into it, it might actually not be all that profitable.
Mhm.
Whereas you might have another offering that's maybe $50,000. It takes one day of time to deliver that offering, and it doesn't, it's repeatable. You can offer it all year long, and it's almost all profit at that point. So that's one of our favorite metrics to look at, is profitability by client and profitability by offering. Are there any other metrics that you love to have people make sure they're looking at?
For the types of businesses we work with, it's so niche that we have lots of metrics
Mm,
specifically for the types of businesses that we work with. And I will say that's why, I emphasize, does your bookkeeper really understand your
Yeah.
business model, because if they don't really know your business model that well, or they're not experts at it, they're probably not going to have any metrics for you. They might be able to go, it looks like you're spending a lot of money in this area, and maybe that's helpful. Maybe that's new information for you that then you can explore that. But I think that's where, again, I think a lot of the bookkeeping services out there are a little flawed, because if they're working with a restaurant, a consultant, a laundromat, a dry cleaner, and an e-com business, those are such different business models to manage the financial tracking for and set up the profit and loss statements for, that they're just trying to do the bare minimum to get something in there organized. Again, more so for the accountant to file the taxes than for you to necessarily know what's going on. So that's where, if you, again, I might be setting a tall order here, but seeing if you can find a bookkeeper that does have a lot of experience with your business model, that will increase the likelihood that they'll actually have some metrics for you. And that's why we have so many metrics for our clients, because we work with the same types of businesses over and over again, that we start to see those patterns and can understand those patterns. That I can tell you, I don't want our clients spending more than 30% of their revenue on their advertising. I don't want to see their team expenses getting more than like 20 to 25%, maybe 30% at most. I don't want them to be spending more than 5 or 7% on coaching or consulting, or I don't want to see them spending more than 4 or 5% on their software. So these are the types of things that maybe for your business model, some of these metrics would work. Maybe your business model is going to be a little different there. But that's why having someone, your accountant, your bookkeeper, the people that are going to be helping you track these financial or put together these financial reports for you, it's so important that they have at least some sort of understanding and some sort of experience with the type of business you're running.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point, because there are so many things. Oh, good, Will. I'm so glad. And I'm just going to send just a heartfelt message out to Will and Sydney. They'll know why for today, something that's going on in their lives. So we're definitely thinking about you guys. And I'm thrilled you were here with us live, Will. So glad that was helpful. I think, this idea of working with people who understand your space is so important. We see that about legal services too. And
Oh yeah.
CPA, legal services, CPAs, coaches, consultants, the bookkeeping side, the financial management side. There are different gauges and different metrics that you want to look at based on the kind of business that you have. Um, I think one thing I would like you to address is, as we sort of wrap up here today, is around the mindset shifts that need to happen for folks about the financial way, about their finances in their business, and the way that they're showing up to look at it. I know a lot of folks just keep their head down and just kind of keep going, and they're not really paying attention to things like profitability. What are some of the mindset shifts that you have found to be particularly helpful for individuals?
I think it's really just that mindset shift, that mindset shift that's taking you from service deliverer to actually running a business and being the CEO of your business. I think that goes back to what I think we were talking about a little earlier here, Angelique, is like, you don't get the benefit of just like just ignoring certain things and not bringing in people to be experts around some of this stuff. That I think when it comes to, again, your money, like your finance, like what we found is that your finance is so directly then connected to your operations, and then that's so directly affects your profitability and the way you show up for your customers. Like, it's no longer just, we have clients and we serve them. Cool. Like, there's some money in the bank. There really needs to be this deeper level of understanding around, okay, we have clients and we're bringing in money, but how are we using that money to operate the business, whether it's investing in team members, your software, your travel, whatever it is. Because again, like the example I use is, we have, if you have a client or this business and they go, oh, I do $1 million a year in revenue. And you go, wow, that's really impressive. And then they go, yeah, but I spend $800,000 a year on Facebook ads. You'd be like, whoa. So you only have $200,000 to have profit and pay your team and do all the other things. Is it impressive that you have $1 million a year business, $1 million a year business, and that you can generate that revenue? Absolutely. But just generating revenue is no longer going to be good enough. We have to generate revenue and manage cash flow to make sure we have that profit left over. And it's just this game. I really look at it as a game. Game number one is, how do we generate revenue? Most entrepreneurs focus on game number one. It's the most important piece, because if you're not driving revenue, you don't really have a business. But there will be that point where you're like, wow, we're bringing in some money. Now, how we manage that money will become just as important as your ability to generate revenue. Because like you've kind of alluded to, Angelique, with some of the businesses you've seen, if you're generating all this revenue and not really keeping any of it, what's the point? What are we doing here?
What are we doing?
And
Yeah.
so that's where that mindset shift around, okay, I need to learn to be more strategic. I need to really understand how all the functions of this business operates. And the more you can get comfortable in a spreadsheet, doing some basic math, starting to think strategically about the numbers in your business, the sooner you get like over any fears or blockages around dealing with the financial side of your business, like the faster your business is going to grow, the more successful your business is going to be, and the more profitable your business is going to be. And again, it's going to make all the hard work you put into your business feel so much more worthwhile.
Oh man, so many good things, so many golden nuggets in that. I will tell you that that we are such big believers in looking at the numbers too, Parker, around the ROI of the money that we're investing in the business. We take a different, our mindset's a little different about the investment percentages, but to each his own type, thing. So no big deal there. But for us, it's like we always want to see a 10 times ROI. So, if I'm going to invest $100,000 here, or we just made a $50,000 investment, we want to see a 10 times ROI out of that. And so we watch that and we look at that. And so that actually gives us freedom to invest bigger chunks, because we are going to look at the numbers and we're going to make sure that we're getting ROI back. And we've gotten better and better at making those decisions because we've looked at it. We've looked at, okay, well, we made this investment here and we only saw a 2 times or a 3 times investment, or not at all, on certain things. And then other times we've put in, an investment was huge and we saw a massive ROI. And so but the data has helped us get better at making those decisions and giving us the freedom to make those decisions. And also, by the way, there's an accountability, because if I go to my CFO and I say, I would like to invest $50,000 on this project over here, his response back to me is, great. How are we going to see an ROI on that specifically? And what is the timeline of that ROI back? And I think, that goes back to that whole entrepreneurial maturity about the decision that you're making. It's not just sort of this, you know, uh, benchmark for the sake of having a benchmark. It's, we're going to do this and this is specifically how it's going to come back. And it holds me accountable too, as a CEO of this company, to make sure we're implementing on the things we're taking action on. There's a great deal of accountability that comes into that, that if you're going to make an investment in a team member, in a software, in whatever it is, that you are following through on implementing. And I know following through and implementing, for a lot of business owners, they're fine making the investment. It's following through on it to get that ROI is where. But when you're looking at those numbers every month, it's a little bit tougher to get away with not implementing, because you're seeing it in black and white, Parker. And that's what I really love.
And what I want to end with just on that is, what I've found is your numbers will guide you towards the bottlenecks and the priorities in your business. We can't do everything in our business. We can't. I have a laundry list of 20 different things I want to accomplish in this business, and things I think will move it forward, but not all of them are equally important. And that's why the more you understand how your business functions, the more you can understand what the priorities are. And if you focus on the biggest priorities in your business and you can learn how to pinpoint what those priorities are, I just see it over and over again. The business grows in such a healthier way and grows so much more quickly, because we're not spinning our wheels on activities that maybe might be useful 2 years from now, but in the grand scheme of priorities is not the most important thing to be working on in our businesses, and our numbers can guide us towards those realizations.
Man, talk about, the ultimate in terms of getting clear on where you need to invest your energy and put your attention, because whatever you focus on expands. And so, if you're focused on those areas that are really going to drive what's bringing in your revenue, if you're working with someone like Evolved Finance and you're coming in and you're saying, okay, this is really where our dollars came from. This is what actually put dollars in our bank. So we need to double down and do more of that. I mean, that is a huge aha moment, is the ultimate aha moment in your business. By the way, that analogy, that anecdote, or, for instance, that you gave about, oh, we're $1 million business and we're spending $800,000 on Facebook ads. I was laughing when you said that because I kid you not, about 14 months ago, it was one of the last events that I went to before the pandemic hit. It was one of my very last, in-person events that I got to attend. I was sitting at a table with I was an attendee at this event, which is rare these days that I have time to do that, but I was an attendee at this event. We're sitting there and we had some exercise at the breakout table, Parker. And this person was bragging about how they had done a program launch, and done $1 million in sales on this program. And a few minutes later, someone else at the table said to them, well, how did you do that? And they said, well, we really leaned all into Facebook advertising. And then they said, well, how much did you spend on Facebook ads? And with a very straight face, they said, oh, it was just over about 800K. And I thought to myself, you mean to tell me you spent $800,000 selling all of, these folks? It was more of a B2C type of an offering into a program. You made $200,000. That doesn't count all of your energy to build this program, to market the program, and most importantly, to have to deliver this program. And you have less than $200,000 to do it. And I was the only person at the table, I think, who was aghast at these numbers. But
Oh, my mouth would have dropped open if I
yeah,
heard that.
but this isn't like, this is real. Like, the numbers, I just wanted to point out for folks, that's not some outlandish example. That's a very real thing that we hear. It's one of the reasons, by the way, we like selling to B2B organizations and selling to corporate, because typically if you were bringing in $1 million contract, you're definitely not spending 800,000 in Facebook ads.
I hope so. I really hope so. And there are benefits to every type of business model. And that's why the more you understand how your business model works and what advantages you have with your business model, you'll hopefully not run into situations like that.
Ay, Parker, my goodness gracious. But like, fact is stranger than fiction, particularly in the entrepreneur world. That is for sure. So for
That's the
folks
truth.
who are really inspired at this point to get their financial house in order, start looking at their numbers much more strategically and on a regular basis, and working with a growth minded financial team, what is the best way for folks to get in touch with you and your team?
Evolvedfinance.com is the best place to go. Our website has a couple resources I think might be helpful for everyone. Again, that's evolved, EVOLVED finance.com. And we have a great workshop on there that you can sign up for. We give away a free personal budget and a business budget and forecast, and we go a little deeper into some of the things we just talked about, Angelique, on your show. And then I have a podcast where it's just kind of solo episodes with me talking a lot of financial concepts, even kind of more business strategy concepts as it relates to your numbers, just because I get to see behind the scenes of a ton of different businesses ranging from low six figures all the way to the 8-figure range. So I just like to use that podcast to just educate and help people understand why numbers are so important. So if you want to know a little more about us, that's a great place to start.
That is perfect, Parker. Well, I hope folks do go take advantage of those resources. Check out your podcast, follow you. I agree, Don. Parker does have a great voice. We actually heard him on another podcast and just wanted to bring him here. Parker, this has been absolutely amazing. I sincerely appreciate you joining us all the way from San Diego for this conversation this morning. And I certainly look forward to you and I at some point continuing this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Angelique. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, that was Parker Stevenson from Evolved Finance. I highly encourage you all to check out his website, follow his podcast, connect with him on social media, and most importantly, get your financial house in order. I do see one quick question that came in right at the very end here from a LinkedIn viewer. So, welcome. Just asking, can my accountant set up a report I can check that helps me see where I am earning the most from giving corporate clients? So I'll take that one really quick. The answer to that is yes. And the best way to do that is to make sure that your expenses, as your expenses are entered, to make sure those expenses are tied back to particular clients. So if you invested in a particular software or monthly subscription, in order to serve that client, the number of hours that you're working with that client, even if you're not billing by the hour, if you're tracking your time vis-a-vis the engagement fees that you're getting paid, you can start to see that. So really, tracking any and all time that's dedicated to that client, any expenses that go back to that client, any bench members that you're paying out going back to that. So the way to do that is really to be very diligent in how you are allocating your time, tracking your time, and tying it to particular clients, and then looking at expenses that are tied to that client. Believe it or not, you can very quickly start to see, wow, yes, I was paid $250,000 by this corporate client. But by the time I dealt with all of their meetings and all of the back and forth over email and paid the bench members and had these extra, elements in place and the extra business insurance to support them, really my profit margin was only 12% with that client. But this other client who paid $100,000 in top line revenue to our coaching firm, and I'm making that coaching firm up, it was such a turnkey engagement. It was so easy. I had hardly any time of mine. Bench members delivered it. We didn't have to invest in anything else. And so our profit margin on that was actually 25%. So you can absolutely do that, but it absolutely goes back to tracking your expenses and tracking your time vis-a-vis each client. And that is how you are able to do that. And yes, the website was evolvedfinance.com. We will be back, and I highly encourage you guys to go check out Parker. And like I said, make sure you're checking them out on social media, following their podcast, getting their free resources. They are an incredible resource out there for all of you and have so much experience with folks who are doing online programs, service based companies. That's really like their jam. So definitely very much more strategic thinking than your typical. Parker was very humble and very diplomatic, I'll say, very diplomatic. But the fact is, they are much more strategic thinkers about bookkeeping than your typical bookkeeper. So I'll say that for them because it's true. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for joining us today. We will be back here next Wednesday for an incredible episode of Lead Your Movements. Watch your inboxes to stay tuned on who that very special guest is that will be joining me, someone who's been very special in my entrepreneurial journey. And also, don't forget to connect with us. Follow us on Clubhouse for fantastic Q&A sessions with me, as well as subscribe to us on Spotify. That's one of the best places to catch the audio recording as a podcast. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your day. And a big thanks again to Parker Stevenson from Evolved Finance. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.